Neo Woodwinds is the Woodwinds arm of our Neo Modern Soloists series, the flagship orchestral soloists collection that we have. A series that comprises some of the brightest and best musicians from the first chair positions of some of the greatest orchestras here in London. And it comprises of a piccolo, a flute, a clarinet, an oboe, a cor anglais, a bassoon, and then an ensemble patch that takes those instruments and puts them into a sketching tool for you to use for quick access to these textures. There are a plethora of articulations on offer, from the kind of bread and butter articulations you'd expect in an Asante samples library, from expressive longs to marcatos and various other forms of short note, as well as some more extended techniques like trills and ornaments and runs, as well as some very experimental techniques like plosive textures or tongue rams on the bassoon or multiphonics and other kind of more experimental and ethereal textures that you can make with woodwind instruments. So here we have the piccolo loaded up, and again you can see that it's housed within our overlay functionality, which just makes these instruments effortlessly playable, removing the need for key switches where you don't want to use them. Of course, they're still on offer if you do want to, but if you want to dig into this overlay threshold functionality, you simply set it up to the way that you play, and the articulations will just adapt around you. And you can go in and, of course, adapt what articulation triggers based entirely on the velocity of the note you inputted. It's just a far neater way to work within your piano roll and your DAWs that allows cleanup towards actual score a lot easier, and just your overall playing and writing style to just be a whole lot more streamlined. So the piccolo has the expressive longs, marcato, staccato, staccatissimo with infinity overlay. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Trills, major runs which are up and down, as well as up and down flourishes. Then flutter tongues, which are short, plosives, tongue rams, and whistle tones. Let's jump into the key switching side of this library and just go through these one at a time. And there's that dog whistle high pitch of a piccolo, which sounds really quite delicate and beautiful in this library. Of course, in real life, it will probably blow your ears out if they were playing too hard, but it's there and it sounds nice. Okay, marcato. This is really lovely for generating just on the fly kind of orchestral lines that are kind of bouncy and bubbly and full of life. This is probably one of the key components to the piccolo sound. Beautiful. Now staccato. Very nice. Staccatissimo. Now this has an infinity overlay. If I turn this off, we'll get the very short, sharp version. And if I turn it on, we'll get the staccatissimo hit to give you more punch and pronunciation to the beginning of your note, and then you'll get the longs to follow. Which is beautiful. And of course, if you put that in the lower end of your overlay threshold functionality like it is on performance mode 1, you could just gain access to that on the fly. So we can play in expressive longs and then catch the trill whenever we want to. Just makes it effortless to switch between key switches there. It's really comfortable to play and just a joy to kind of experience. Okay, the runs. If we have all three of these highlighted, then the soft end of the spectrum will create the up run. A little bit harder will create the down run. And the hardest velocity will create an up and down run. Now, if we turn any of these off, they'll just share that overlay threshold functionality. So if the up and down is off, then anything up to 65, which is our kind of middle ground, will be an up run, and anything above that will be a down run. And any of these combinations will work. You could have it just all being up and down runs. And it doesn't matter where you hit, you'll just get those. Okay, so moving on to the flutter tongues, which are a short articulation in this instrument. Very cool texture. Plosives. They're awesome. And from the version 3 update here, these have been copied into each octave because the nature of this sound is that you can only really create this in a singular octave on a piccolo. But so that it fits the entire range of the instrument, you don't get caught out with having notes that just don't exist within the range of the general instrument in the expressive longs, for example. We've created the first octave and multiplied it across them all. So you'll still get a sound no matter where you play. So it sounds great. Okay, tongue rams. Very cool sound again. And whistle tones, probably the most experimental sound here, unique to the piccolo. And this has had some pitch time stretching going on as well, but there are core samples as well to be had. Love that. That's such an interesting texture, specific to the piccolo. It's just really a fantastic addition to the library. Okay, let's jump on to the flute now. So again, we see the same core set of articulations with expressive longs, marcato, staccato, staccatissimo. Then we get some variations here. We get a long flutter tongue, we get ornaments, which are up and down, adaptive, trills, which are up and down adaptive, runs, which also extend to fully chromatic runs on this instrument as well. Then some percussive plosive sounds, which are both short and long, as well as some sing and play woozy textures. So let's take a very quick tour through the standard sounds so we can get into those more extended textures. It's effortlessly expressive. The flute really is a gem in this collection. Okay, onto the Mikado. That same bounciness, that same playfulness is there in the Mikado here as well as staccato. Staccatissimo without the overlay. And now width. Great, now flutter tongues. If we turn off true legato here, these of course will work very nicely as chords. Lovely, that's great. Okay, onto the ornaments. Again, these are adaptive to the scale that you choose from the scaling. Work very nicely in chords as well. And because it's scale adaptive, you'll play a chord in the key that you're playing and you just get this beautiful adaptive correct trill type, ornament lift type. Onto down. Lovely, trills. Runs. Great. And now the pa shorts, which is a percussive plosive texture with short notes. Very, very cool. Pa longs, same thing, but ending on a long note. So this is very useful. Recorded live this way, so you get that beautiful transition from harmonic overtones, from the kind of overblowing into the just standard beautiful longs. Again, works very well as chords. Great. Now sing and play. These are very experimental textures, as where the player sings with the note that they are playing. The first octave is in unison. For the second octave, it's down an octave as doubling. Again, works very well as chords. And very, very unique to this library. I doubt that you'll hear that anywhere else. Singing and playing now, the vocal is now woozy. It's kind of a drunken vocal that plays along with the note. You get that lovely build-up of tension as the notes kind of separate from each other and then come back again. It's a really beautiful texture. Okay, onto the clarinet. So again, we have the standard expressive longs, marcato, staccato, staccatissimo. Then we get into the extended textures. So very quick whistle-stop tour through the expressive longs. As you can hear, it's just effortless just to play runs or any phrase you want. The engine just adapts to how you're playing, basically. Okay, the Maccatos. Same playfulness, same energy, really lovely. Staccato. Staccatissimo. And with the overlay. Great. Double tongues. Lovely texture there. And the trills. I love how the keys play a crucial part in the sound of those trills. Onto runs. Beautiful. Flutter tongues. That's really cool. Ornaments up. Ornaments down. Another beautiful instrument. There is a Easter egg in this instrument, and everyone that owns version 1 or 2 will of course know this already, but it's basically almost entirely there for fun because the clarinet can do it and it sounds so good. It's the long, slow gliss from Rhapsody in Blue, or at least made famous by that, this style of playing gliss. We have both just the dry gliss, and we have the full trilled intro. Love it. It's awesome. It's so cool to have it there. Of course, very limited use case, but we had probably one of the greatest clarinet players in the country in the studio, and it seemed silly not to take full advantage of that and really hear that gliss exactly how it should be performed. It's so hard to do, and it sounds so beautiful here. Turn that off though at will, and then it means you won't accidentally trigger that if you're playing it with multiple instruments. Okay, onto the oboe. And as you see here, again, standard articulations for the first kind of chunk of the instrument with expressive longs, maccato, staccato, staccatissimo with infinity button. Then onto the double tongues, trills, glitch, flutter, and the ornaments. Beautiful, full of character. Onto the maccato. Staccato. Beautiful. Staccatissimo without the infinity. Now with. Double tongues. Trills. Lovely. Glitch flutter. It's such an awesome, unique texture. Again, probably quite unique to just this collection. The ornaments. Ornaments down. Beautiful. Onto the Cor Anglais. Marcato. Staccato. Staccatissimo without the infinity. With double tongues. Trills. Absolutely full of life. I love that. Glitch flutter. Ornaments. Beautiful. And ornaments down. Lovely. Okay, onto the bassoon. So expressive. I really, really love this bassoon. It's such a highlight for me. Marcato. Beautiful. Staccato. Staccatissimo without the infinity. Beautiful. And with it, it works best with the mezzo forte, so it gels nicely with the expressive longs, though you can, of course, use the forte to give an extra punch. Trills. Really lovely. We go on such an expressive journey with the trills. Runs. Flutter tongue. Very cool texture. Okay, the multiphonics, this is an experimental sound, of course. What a texture. What a mad, crazy texture that instrument can make. Tongue rams. Another awesome one. Okay, before we move on to the ensemble, let's just take a quick whistle-stop tour of the interface. By now, I'm sure you're getting familiar with how the Insanity Samples libraries work. They have an overlay threshold functionality in the center. If we switch over to a performance mode, that ultimately allows you to access any of the articulations at any point on the fly just by how hard or soft you're playing on your keyboards. You can, of course, switch to the key switch mode as we did in the demos just now, or you can use our pre-built performance modes, or build your own and save some snapshots. The choice ultimately is completely yours. Then we go through to our mixer page, where we have our 4 mics that are on offer, a mid, left and right mic, an overhead and a room mic, which can all be purged for RAM if you require it, or all balanced together to create an overall mix. The mechanical sounds are the sounds of the keys. Where available on these instruments, we can dial that in and out to add further realism, and it really does make a huge difference to the texture of the instruments. Now we'll go through to effects. Our standard stereo delay and reverb with a series of convolutions on offer, and then finally an EQ as well, so we can sculpt the sound within the confines of the library itself where required. There's of course also our true legato window, where we can turn the legato on or off to access polyphonic playing and chords, or to play single notes with the legato transitions, of which there are an adaptive mode where we get the full kind of porter, slow transition sound, or a quicker, snappier transition sound that allows you to play faster flourishes and runs. Then the adaptive modes for speed or velocity are controlled by the sliders, which is in milliseconds, and in dynamics from 1 to 127. You can set the threshold to below or above for velocity for further manipulation of the overlay threshold technology. If you needed to put the expressive longs right up in the high end, but you still wanted to get the true legato sound, then you'd want to switch gears to having the slow transition above the velocity threshold that you've set. That's why that control's there. The legato velocity just snaps the legato of the phrase you're playing to the velocity you started with. Now this allows you to lock to one articulation. So if you have a really complicated overlay threshold grid and you hit that expressive long just right at say an 80 in velocity, and of course on from that moment you don't want to accidentally trigger the incorrect articulation, you want the entire legato phrase to be expressive longs, then you can switch on that velocity lock, and it will just lock the instrument into the velocity that you started with when the phrase begun. We can also turn key switches on and off, which is very useful for stacking these instruments or playing with other ensembles, meaning that you won't trigger accidentally any of our key switching functionality that we have. Turn that off and none of those buttons will do anything anymore. Turn it back on and of course they're there. Okay, onto the ensemble patch. So a simple patch here of just the expressive longs, marcato, staccatissimo with infinite overlay and trills. And of course, everything is in one big instrument here. There is a polylegato functionality, so if you're holding a note and moving to another, you will hear the legato transitions from the notes that are triggering those notes. It's subtle because the overall sound is loud, but it is still there to add a bit more realism when you're just using this for sketching. If I play a chord, you'll hear how this kind of functions. Of course, in the lowest registers, it will be just bassoon, and in the highest registers, it will be just piccolo, because that's the nature of these instruments. Beautiful. And we can go from the expressive longs to staccatissimo without the infinity, with the infinity, that's really warm and beautiful. Of course, you can use these in performance modes that we've built, or you can build your own and save snapshots as well. Just meaning here that we can catch those expressive longs, but then maybe play very softly on a chord above and catch the trills. Lovely. Okay, on that note, that has been an in-depth look at Neo Woodwind's Modern Soloists and all that is new in the version 3 update. Head to insanitysamples.com for more information, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.